What happens when a 16-year-old accidentally lands a sales job and never looks back? Meet Luke Warren, CEO, award winner, and someone who's turned ADHD into his secret weapon. From selling broken MP3 players on eBay to leading 300 people across multiple businesses, Luke's journey proves that the traditional route is overrated. In this episode, we're diving deep into neurodiversity in leadership, why being yourself is your biggest competitive advantage, and the real cost of chasing perfection. If you've ever felt like you don't fit the mold, this one's for you. Let's jump in. Hello, hackers, and welcome to another edition of Leadership Hacks. In this episode, I have the pleasure of welcoming Luke Warren, who is the CEO of Kinetics. He has a fantastic story, one that we're going to get into. Luke, first and foremost, I'd like to say thank you for joining the show.
Thanks for having me, Obi. It's a proper pleasure.
Great. It's love having the opportunity to get CEOs onto the show, because Leadership Hacks is all about showing the person who we used to be. So, you know, our 23-year-old, our 20-year-old, our 15-year-old selves, that it is possible to reach the pinnacle, to reach whatever your dreams may be, regardless of the background and the upbringing that you've had. And I guess I'd like to start then, Luke, with asking you, you're Group CEO now. I know you haven't gone down the traditional route to get there. What has your route to CEO been like? I'm asking that question. If you can take us back to school days through to now and run us through, what has your journey been like?
Yeah. So I suppose probably kind of crazy to some degree looking back on it, whilst it really didn't feel crazy, in the moments. I have always been fairly entrepreneurial, and fortunately or unfortunately, or a blend of both, I got a really big opportunity to focus on some of that entrepreneurial spirit when I was younger. So I was hit by a car in secondary school. I was 14 on my bike on the pavement. And it was the day the W Reg came out. So that definitely could date me, right? But this guy slipped on builder's sand that was filled the gaps in the tarmac, made it slippery. He came onto the pavement and he took me out very cleanly. I had operations. I was in a wheelchair for a while. And after year 7, I didn't do any PE lessons in secondary education. I became obsessed with business. eBay came out and I was buying broken things, fixing them, selling them on for huge profits. And
Broken things like what? What do you mean by that?
Like MP3 players. So there was a Napster Samsung device, which it was really well known for, well, I say really well known. I found out that there was a fault where the battery would wobble and come loose and it would look like it was broken. But actually with a small piece of foam, you got to fill the gap between the battery case and the battery, which kept it on the pins. And then said broken device became very much a working device. I would buy them for £10. I would sell them for nearly 200. Wow. So making really good money. And my parents were like, leave him to it. He seems to know what he's doing. This eBay thing. He's asked for my credit card. I hope that's okay. And yeah, I suppose lucky to have come from a family that trusted me to do stuff like that. But I would also sell stuff in school, buy stuff at a lower price, and I would sell it to the kids in school. And I think because of the accident, I wasn't able to kick a ball around the way that I wanted to. I ended up spending loads of time in technology, rebuilding computers, buying and selling stuff, fixing things. And I got to, I suppose, experiment with that entrepreneurial spirit more than some my age would have. So unfortunately that I found myself in that position, but I actually think I probably wouldn't be here today if that hadn't have happened.
Your journey from there, so that's your school years. What did you then do? Did you go down the traditional route of sixth form or college and then university and then into employment?
Yeah, I accidentally found myself in a sales job. So I was looking for something to do in the 6 weeks holidays in college and went for an interview. But the guy who was interviewing me, the owner of this business, his granddad had died that morning and he just scrapped his diary, but no one else knew I was coming. So, young me turned up in a BHS, if you remember BHS suit, that had been bought the night before.
You didn't fly away, I hope, because they used to be oversized, certainly when I was younger anyway.
I have a photo that I will not share with you. But I turned up for an interview that no one knew about, and somehow I managed to get myself a job as a salesperson rather than a runner. And all they were looking for was a runner for 6 weeks because the person that was taking the job permanently needed to be with their children for the 6 weeks holidays, and they just needed like a stopgap. So that was supposed to be me, a little bit of experience, a couple of, very low pay. It was more about the experience. And I came out with a job as a salesperson completely accidentally. Got a call that night from the guy, the owner, who was supposed to be interviewing me. And he said, listen, something's not gone well here, or has, I don't know which. He said, but my sales leaders think that you can be a great salesperson. I didn't want you for that. I wanted you for 6 weeks only to like make me a tea, do some photocopying, like real basic stuff. And he said, my guys don't often get it wrong. So if you fancy giving it a go, give it a go. And I was like,
How old are you?
okay. I was 16.
Okay, right, yeah.
Yeah. So I was first year of college. I was one of the younger kids in the class. So I was 16, soon to be 17 at that point. And I took the job and I didn't go back to college after the 6 weeks. I made some really good money. I learned more than I ever realized there was to learn in such a short space of time. I was 10 years younger than the youngest person on the team, and I started outperforming some of them really quickly. So complete happy accident, Obi.
And Luke, so when you reflect back on that time, that young 16-year-old in work, is it a time you reflect back on with fond memories? And you say you learned a hell of a lot. Looking back then, what were you learning? You may not have known it at the time, but now upon reflection, I'm sure you do.
Emotional resilience. It was a really cutthroat environment. The owner of the business, I think in today's age, some of the practices wouldn't be socially acceptable. For example, hiring 10 people very quickly, hoping to keep one of them by the end of week 1. So rather than going through a painstaking process of multiple interviews, presentations, he would simply pick 10 people, train them very fast, and then select the best ones at the end of the first week.
Yeah.
And that was just the way it was in the place that I was working. I didn't really think too much about it. I didn't know any different, Obi, right? I didn't have anything to compare that against. And it became kind of accepted and normal. In today's day and age, it would be totally unacceptable. And it's certainly not the way I lead today. But I reflect back on that time, and every time something good happens in my career, I still message the owner of that business. I thank him. I thank him for what he taught me, because what a start I had. I can't thank him enough.
Yeah, I think those formative years in the workplace are so important, and they do stick with you forever. I know that I fell into recruitment. That was my first job out of university, and I learned so much from my then line manager, Gordon Mitchell. Hi, Gordon, if you're listening. And that I still implement in the way in which I operate through to this day. Okay, so Luke, what did you do after that? Did you work there for a couple of years and then go on to university, or how?
Yeah, I progressed through the team at the grand old age of about 18, 19. I was heavily involved in training and onboarding and that selection process of who was going to make it and who wasn't. It was a lot of fun. It was stressful. It was incredibly long hours. It was based in the city. But I decided after nearly 3 years that I would just like to try something else, right? Like, this was a very happy accident. And I just had this bug, this thing I couldn't shift of, things are going really well. I'm having a lot of fun, but I don't know what else is out there. This just happened. So I went to meet a recruiter, the same recruiter that I still work with today, it was 20 years later.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's where the next phase of the story began. And it was just through experimentation and a curiosity of what else is out there? Like, what am I missing?
What else was out there?
Field sales. So what I'd been doing is very much selling from a fancy office in London. That was wonderful. But there was this field sales thing, right? You get a car, you get a laptop, you get a bunch of stuff, and you have some autonomy. You have your own space. You don't have to do the train into London. You get to meet people face to face and actually have more strategic conversations and build relationships. And that was all of the things I loved to do that I wasn't doing necessarily in that kind of, it was very much a telesales role in reality that I was doing. So I definitely went out there with a hunch that something like that would appeal to me. And it's exactly what I found.
And I have a question, because you said car, and I still remember the first car I ever got in my job. Do you remember the car that they gave you, or is that?
Yeah, ROV, it's embarrassing. So, well, not the car, but it was a Renault Laguna.
Okay, yeah.
So I was driving, bearing in mind my age at this point, I
Yeah.
hadn't been driving for a long time. I was driving a Fiat Punto.
Oh, yeah.
And I turn up my first day and they hand me the keys to a brand spanking new, never been driven Renault Laguna, which was, it felt about 10 times the size of my Fiat Punto. It was automatic. I sat in the car park for about an hour trying to figure out how to get it into gear because I've never driven an auto before.
Right.
The whole press the brake to put it into drive, I just didn't know that. So I'm sat there with the manual
Yeah.
of this car, not prepared to go inside the building and say, hey, can one of you guys help me? So an hour later, I managed to get it into to drive.
Oh, Luke, I love that story. It reminds me because my first company car was a Renault Megane, and not too dissimilar to, well, maybe I loved that car because it was the first time I had a brand new car, like literally brand spanking new. But my car previous to that, my personal car was a diesel car. So when I went to fill it up, I put diesel in a petrol, and it's not a story. It's not a story I've shared before, but I know that it was brutal because back in those days, I wasn't earning a lot of money, and the company made you pay for it because it was very clearly labelled that it was a petrol car. But we live and we learn. We make these mistakes, right?
That is funny. Yeah. It was too big, this car for me. It was unnecessarily large. Pretty sure I bumped it a few times.
Yeah.
Driving through London, my patch was very much like London, northwest, into kind of Marylebone and those sorts of areas. And we carried some stuff. So I wasn't getting on the train all too often. So it was a young guy driving around in a car that was too big, driving through streets of London that were too small.
Yeah.
And I learned fast.
Yeah. And how long did you do that for? And sorry, what were you doing? You say you were carrying stuff. What stuff were you selling?
Yeah, so it was data protection, I suppose, is the category of business, but ultimately it was selling subscription services to destruction. So whether that would be paper, hard drives,
Okay.
sensitive equipment, so things that the police would need destroying. So yeah, it was really interesting. I would find myself in a huge variety of businesses, from manufacturing through to fancy offices.
Sure.
It was an experience.
And an enjoyable experience, or one of those
Massively.
called just an experience?
Oh, no, massively. Huge organization, thousands of salespeople, competitive by nature, very kind of like league table driven. I have always been obsessed with league tables. I think a lot of people are. Some are obsessed by not being at the bottom of it. Others are obsessed by being on the top. And that was very much me. If I wasn't on the top, I lost
Okay.
in my head. Massively target driven. And interestingly, having not seen my old manager from that business for 16 years or so, I'm actually meeting him tomorrow morning for coffee.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, like that is pure coincidental.
Okay.
Messaged him a few weeks ago and just said, like, it's kind of criminal. I
Yeah.
adored you. Like, you gave me one of the best starts I could ever hope for, and we haven't spoken.
Yeah.
So he kind of felt the same. We're meeting tomorrow halfway for coffee. So yeah, looking forward to seeing him again.
Yeah. So your fiance sales days, they last for how long?
10 years.
Oh,
Not in two different businesses. So I went on from that business fairly fast. They made some very strange changes. I felt they were strange at the time. I feel like they're even stranger now. They ejected some incredible talent, leadership talent from that organization, and then replaced them with people that were totally inferior. I mean, I left too. We were the highest performing team globally. And within no time at all, the culture had shifted. The leadership style had changed. They were trying to create robots all of a sudden. And it just wasn't for me. It wasn't for most of the team. We went from being the highest performing team to actually none of those teams being in that business.
and I think somebody who's target driven like yourself, that would have just been a big X.
I think being yourself, no matter who you are, is the finest thing you can be. And they were trying to get us to be robotic, to the point where actually my new manager in that business, I'll never forget this, I'll take this to my grave. He said, it shouldn't matter whether you go and see this prospect or Rebecca, the other person he was comparing me to, you should sound the same and do the same. And actually that for me was like, oh no, that's not me. I have a real challenge with rehearsing, and being prescriptive.
Yeah, it just doesn't work. And well, I think it goes against everything that I stand for anyway, because I think diversity in the workforce is so important. And I see the benefits of that. And when I talk about diversity in the workforce, it's diversity across all the demographics. The last thing that I think any company should have is the same of everything. They sounding the same, looking the same, and doing the same, because I just don't believe that that company will, well, it won't be around in a year's time, let alone 10 years time.
I couldn't agree more.
Equally,
Like,
we
yeah.
employ people, and we're individuals. That's what's great. That's what attracts us to one another, that we have an individual experience and an individual opinions.
I can't agree more with that. I'm sure we'll get on to Kinetic at some point during our chat today, but that's the way Kinetic is. It's very much celebrating and bringing out the best in every person, and everyone is different. And there are things that maybe I wouldn't do, OB, the same way you do, but like the fact that you do and it works for you, I'm a big fan of that. So I think celebrating that is the best thing that brings out the best in people, and the best in people gets the best results. Yeah, that wasn't going to work for me in that business. I was super lucky to find an exceptional business and two are just like bonkers good leaders who, if I was to summarize right now why I thought they were so good, is because they were much old. They were not much older than me, but they were older than me, and they had a belief that you were either good enough or not good enough. It wasn't about being old enough. It wasn't about being like tenured enough. It was like, are you good enough? Because if the answer is yes, we're going to develop and promote you. And I was a young guy still. I was 22 when I first got my management role with that business. And I was managing a team where the youngest was again like 10 years older than me. And my leaders, Richard and Mark, they just believed that you were either good enough or you were not. It wasn't about anything else. So I found myself in a position where I had exceptional leaders once again.
Which is great, because that also then presents opportunity. And without that opportunity, you don't get to showcase your skills. You don't get to gain the experience, to fall over and fail a couple of times, but learn from that and then become the leader that you are now. And I wish more leaders would give people an opportunity and not reject them based on you haven't got enough experience, because we know there are transferable skills, and we also know that people are sponges, and unless you just let them go and release them, you'll never know what their true potential is.
I could agree more with that. And I think the whole failure and mistakes thing, it doesn't, I'm not suggesting for a second that this works really well for everybody. Some are just very anti and struggle to adapt to this way of thinking. But we always try and celebrate errors and mistakes and failures for the beneficial outcomes, right? Like, what is it you learn?
Yeah.
I posted on LinkedIn a few weeks ago, actually, about a squash match. It's my sport, squash. I play in 2 different leagues. I get the exercise for free because I love the game so much. And I got absolutely destroyed a few weeks ago. And I shook the guy's hand and I said, I really appreciate the lesson. Yeah. And he laughed. He went, what does that mean? I was like, you've taught me so much today. I was like, I know you've just beat me 3-0, right? Like, you've wiped the floor of me, but you taught me so much. Thank you. Yeah. And he was like, this guy's crazy. Yeah. I mean, we should just celebrate those mistakes. I think making them twice is a problem for me, but making them once and taking the learning from it is something I teach my children. And I definitely show up in Kinetic and the other businesses I'm responsible for with that type of attitude, because I think we get a lot from it. I
couldn't agree more there, Luke. So Luke, you were in field sales for 10 years, and then what happened?
Yeah. So I'd been in that business and been promoted several times, highest performing sales leader in the business. I had multiple sales teams. I was the only one to have multiple sales teams. And they were keen to progress me to the next phase, which was taking on, whether it would have been a director title, it was that way inclined principally. But it involved a move to Cheshire. Cheshire is like a wonderful place.
Up north.
Yeah, up north, and 200 miles away from London. I was born and bred in London, live in Essex now. Family are all here. It put me in a position where I was actually really happy to consider doing that, but it also made me believe I should pause for a moment and just go and explore what else is out there. This was going to be a huge change. And if you're going to make a huge change, you may as well consider what other huge changes you could make. And that's when I found Kinetic. I absolutely fell in love with Valaris, our parent company, and Kinetic, the business I today run. And not only did I end up declining the promotion, I actually resigned too, which I know was a surprise to that business. It was such an epic business. I learned so much there, but that experimentation and exploration stage before accepting the promotion led me to believe that I had more to learn and I would learn it faster somewhere else. So I decided to move on.
And this is where your journey with Kinetic began.
Indeed. Yeah. So super interesting. Well, I think it is. I actually came second in the Kinetic process. I
Oh,
didn't get the
really?
job.
Oh,
I
wow.
didn't get Yeah, so got to the very final, which was a long process and a very diligent process. And I massively fell in love with the business and the parent company, and what the parent company, how the parent company supported their organizations. So I was gutted not to get the role. The feedback was light, really, and I wasn't happy with that. The feedback was simply that you're great, like you can definitely do this, but the guy who we're going to give the role to has just done it more than you. So in terms of like risk, you're more risky than he is because you've done exceptional stuff, once or twice, and he's done it 3 or 4 times. So we're just, we're making sure that we take the lowest risk, and that's not you, I'm afraid. So I wasn't happy with that. I'd spent a lot of time with the leaders of the organization. Like I'm talking hours and hours with them, and even more hours researching them and preparing. And I just grilled them constantly, and I was relentlessly looking for more feedback. And when the guy who came first didn't end up showing up, didn't take the job, I was such an obvious choice to call back, right? And the thing that made them call me back was probably, of course, the fact that I came second. But actually, the thing that they referenced was, you're relentless, man. Like you just want to learn. And actually, what was most impressive for them in that moment was how relentless I was, how unforgiving my approach was. I've spent loads of hours invested in your business. You will give me better feedback than that.
Sure. I have a curiosity around this because I've just been speaking to a client of mine who has been in a similar situation, who's come a close second, and my advice to them was, don't be disheartened. Make sure you seek feedback, but seek feedback from a position of trying to learn, and accept. And this is going to be my question to you. And accept that there is a possibility that you were not the best person on the day. Are you saying you didn't accept you weren't the best person on the day?
No, I think the reason they gave me was logical, right? Like this guy, they were very complimentary of my performance. And I think I did show up as my best.
Sure.
And that helped me accept it because I didn't walk away going, you, Luke, right? You could have done better there.
Sure.
You could have done harder. That wasn't your best performance. I walked away feeling that I'd done a good job. And if my version of a good job was beaten by someone else, then they should get the job, right? Like it's them.
Yeah.
But I think the one thing that I can't forgive, and I absolutely do my utmost, and I teach all of my leaders in the businesses to do their utmost. These people have invested sometimes days, like learning your organization, preparing for presentations, traveling to your offices, spending time with you, going out for lunch with your team if that's how far you took it, to then get a no at the end of it. That person deserves to learn from the process, right? And even if they couldn't have done a better job, someone just outclassed them, right? Because they're just more experienced. That doesn't mean you don't give them a ton of feedback to help them get their next role. So that's definitely the way I show up now for our candidates ever since then, because I know how it made me feel. And they gave me epic feedback, actually, once I pressed for it. And I would just encourage people to press for it. What did I have to lose, really?
Sure.
I didn't get the job. And yeah, I needed to learn from that situation.
Yeah, but I love your take on that, and that you implement that not only within your own businesses and for yourself, but for those who work within the business too, so that everybody gets fair feedback. Because too often, as you say, people put their hearts and souls, how emotionally connected you were and the hours that you put in, and I think a lot of people do that, to then be told, unfortunately you didn't get the job, but thanks for your input, it's not enough, is it? It's not enough at all.
I'm sure if I've seen it, you've seen it too, Obi, on LinkedIn, but you'll often see a screenshot of someone's rejection letter, and it's just rough. Like it's not okay for businesses to treat people. I mean, and not every business does this, of course, there's my disclaimer, but too many businesses treat people in a way that I just don't think is okay.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Luke, I'd like to move this conversation on slightly. So attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, a neurodevelopment condition characterized by persistent patterns of inattention, hyperactivity, and or impulsiveness, better known to us as ADHD. Luke, you are somebody who has gone on the record as saying that you have been diagnosed with ADHD. You live with ADHD. Can you tell us about your ADHD journey? I know I know you also say your ADHD has become a superpower. Can you enlighten us on that too? Why is your ADHD a superpower? First and foremost, when did you become aware that
Yeah.
you had ADHD?
So officially aware and probably aware, two different things. So
Sure.
officially aware about 2 years ago,
Okay.
probably aware my whole life. Right. So the obsession, the compulsion, the impulsiveness, the inattentiveness to anything I find disinteresting. I've known all of that for a long time. You know, when I said to my mum, I'm gonna go down the path of like exploring this, she was like, yeah, I always wondered. And the number of people in my life who have stopped conversations with me for a minute, like kind of like time out. Do you have ADHD? And the number of times I've had that is just insane. And I got it twice in a day. Two people, a guy called Simon, and a guy called Dan in Kinetic. One of them's not with us anymore. One of them is. They both on the same day, like an hour apart, without knowledge of each other doing it. They both did the kind of the time out. Like, do you have ADHD? Because like this is kind of crazy. And it was that moment that made me think, do you know what? That's happened too many times. I've always wondered. This feels like a fun experiment to go and explore further. I've always been obsessed with understanding psychologically how my brain works. You name the psychometric or the, you know, whether it's therapy, coaching, mentoring, I've gone and hunted that stuff down for a long time. So I've always been obsessed with how my brain works. So I didn't go into this trying to solve what I perceive to be a problem. I found it really intriguing, and I wanted to understand whether my brain operated in this kind of like stereotypical ADHD fashion officially, and if it did, how could I leverage it? What could I do? Where does it show up where, you know, maybe it's not that ideal? We can definitely get into that if you're interested, because that's at home and probably for my wife and kids, if I'm honest.
Absolutely. We're
Yeah.
interested in it all. Yeah.
Yeah. So got the diagnosis, experimented with all sorts of things to try and unlock the best of it and to try and overcome some of the less good stuff. And it's been a really, really great journey. Like, would recommend it to, and I have recommended it to a number of people that have experienced what I've experienced. I think it's important to say that I never perceived it to be an issue. My brain worked in a way that I honestly believed was a gift. Not all of it is a gift, but a lot of it is a gift. And I don't know that I'd be where I am today without it. So if you could like give me a magic pill now that would help me get rid of it, I would absolutely flush it down the toilet. I would not remove my ADHD.
Yeah. It's interesting. I recently listened to a Mel Robbins podcast
Yeah.
about ADHD, and her view, because she has a ADHD, was through her childhood, and she has no, not recently. She was diagnosed for ADHD at the age of 47 because she took her child for testing. Her child's got ADHD, and when the report came back, when she's reading through the report, she's literally like, "That is me. That is me. That is me. My mind does that. Blah 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 blah." So she then gets herself tested, and she said it was such an eye opener, because through her childhood she was made to feel bad. Where I think you're saying you haven't had that experience, and she was made to feel bad because she couldn't sit still, she couldn't pay attention in class, and therefore she was seen as the naughty child. I have a very close friend who has a child with ADHD who constantly will send me messages to say that they've got another detention because they weren't able to sit still. It feels like, so when my understanding of ADHD is it can be unfair in a world that doesn't understand it. Have you ever felt like that? Or
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But I don't think I ever dwelled on it. I think I could definitely look back and I see some of my traits in, I've got 3 kids and I can see some of my traits in some of them. My daughter, for example, is like a carbon copy. And I don't think the education system is set up at all adequately. And we could get into politics and some views on this stuff. It probably is safer not to.
yeah.
But the reality is sticking 30 kids in a class and pretending that they all learn the same way and all show up the same way is the most ridiculous thing that we could ever do to our children. And yet I just dropped my kids off at school this morning to sit in a class of 30 to
as
be
we all
treated,
did.
right? So like I get that that's contradictory, but we all learn differently. And Yeah, I learn by touching and feeling and playing and talking and experimenting and getting it wrong, not by sitting there and watching a screen or a chalkboard. We had chalkboards and like, overhead projectors, and like death by kind of PowerPoint in those days would have been those overhead projectors, probably younger than I look. Hopefully I look younger than I am, but definitely from an era of OHPs and chalkboards. So yeah, it sucked. I suppose what happened was I always knew what side of the line to stay on. My parents were very softly spoken, never raised their voices, didn't smack us, not once in our lives. But if we misbehaved or did the wrong thing, they would stop us from enjoying the thing that we enjoyed. And for me, that was two things. One, I lived in a cul-de-sac with all of my best friends in my childhood, lived in that same cul-de-sac. We had the most amazing childhood. She'd stop me going out, my mum, with them for a week, like to the dot, or she'd stop me using my computer.
Sure.
I love those two things too dearly. If I misbehaved, I knew she would keep me to 1 week grounding and she would not relent. So I stayed on the right side in school, knowing that if I didn't, I would lose access to the things I loved. But left to my own devices, I would probably end up being the class clown. I would try and find fun in other ways. And yeah, I didn't pay a load of attention in school. It wasn't until secondary school where I felt offended by a few of my teachers, and I actually have reached out to them in adult years to have this discussion, and they've been absolute legends in having this discussion. But it wasn't until my science teacher, my maths teacher said, like, one of them said, if I was your parent, I'd be disappointed. Yeah. And the other one said, you're going to fail. It's undeniable. It's undoubtable in my mind, you're going to fail. And that is the best thing you could ever have told me, because to spite you, I'm going to make sure I don't. And, I was doing it at the time as a naive child to, I suppose, to literally spite the teacher and prove them. But I passed all of my exams and passed them really well on my own regard, because I revised hard and I made sure that I could show up with a grade that was very, very respectable. My maths teacher asked for my grades, my exams to be recounted.
No.
So yeah, he did. So he was an arse. He was a complete and utter arse. I did not like him, still don't like him. My science teacher, on the other hand, the guy who did accept the conversation in adult years, he said, like, actually, I don't mind how I motivated you. I'm just so happy I did.
Right.
He had a very mature reaction to that, because I didn't like him either. To pull someone back at the end of a class and say, if I was your parent, I'd be very disappointed. My dad wanted to go down to school and teach him a lesson.
Of course, yeah.
But like, actually, I thank him for it, because it taught me something very valuable.
Yeah, I'm on the fence on this, because it sounds like you're a resilient person, and not everybody has the same level of resilience, and that could have gone the other way. The teacher doesn't know the individual that they're talking to, and it could be a very different story. I think teachers carry so much power, and I'm not blaming teachers per se, because I think we all learn with time and have a better understanding of how some of these neurological dispositions can impact individuals. But it really does pain me to see young children being punished for something that they don't have control over, and it's not fully understood, and the impact that can then have on them psychologically. A quick pause, and I promise this will be shorter than your morning coffee queue. The Leadership Hacks podcast is free because I don't think leadership advice should have a paywall. But the truth of the matter is that podcasting takes time and equipment, and I have a sugar addiction that not many people know about that needs feeding. If these episodes have helped you dodge even one awkward moment at work, or helped you overcome imposter syndrome, then chuck us a few quid, will you? Every donation keeps the mic on and the leadership hacks coming. The link's in the show notes. No pressure, but my editor kids have got to eat. Now let's get back to it.
I think we were living in a different era too, right? ADHD wasn't something that was publicized, spoken about. It was super rare. It was definitely reserved for very naughty children who would sit in isolation. That's the treatment for ADHD back then. And that was, looking back, that was how there were definitely children that I would be in those classes with that now probably have a diagnosis for ADHD that literally just got locked up, essentially.
Yeah.
We're asked to sit quietly, very still, and to do very boring work. And that looking back is ridiculous. I had a conversation with my daughter. My daughter's 14 this morning. We live 16 miles away from her school. So try as often as I can to drive her there. And we have amazing conversations. And this morning she was speaking about a teacher, Mr. Gardner, and how much she adores him. he teaches RS, religious studies.
Yeah.
And she said, the thing is, Dad, there's a real difference from Mr. Gardner. In some classes, if I forget my pen, I get a behavior point. It's called a B2.
Sure.
It goes on a record and it stops her from getting, it counts towards like not getting your options
Sure.
for GCSE. But Mr. Gardner has like a different take. He has a box of very cheap pens and a pack of paper on his desk at all times. And he says, if you forget your notebook and if you forget your pen, don't come and ask me, just come and take one. Like, I think it's ridiculous that people give out B2s for forgetting a pen. It's such a simple thing.
Yeah.
Take a pen, don't worry about it. Mia, my daughter, my 14-year-old daughter, adores Mr. Gardner and she is learning so much from him.
Yeah.
And there's in terms of leadership, right, there's such a difference between the two styles, and she's getting the outcome that Mr. Gardner wants for something as simple as, if you forget your pen, come take a pen.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, schools have a lot to answer for, and yeah, I did really well in the end, but probably simply because I was stubborn. And I do realize, Obi, that not everyone it kind of has that mind. I feel
Sure.
very grateful to have my mind, but yeah, teachers have a lot to answer for.
Yeah, no, couldn't agree more. Luke, so just sticking with the theme of ADHD, how has your ADHD impacted your career progression over the years, both the challenges and the unexpected advantages?
Yeah, and it has definitely both of those. I think the way I show up is pretty obsessive. I love solving problems and I have opinions and I struggle not to share them. I have like one way out. Like there's only one way my opinions go, and it's out of my mouth. And I don't have like a back door where I can just like park my opinions and just forget about them. They only have one way they're going to go. And that has, more often than not, put me in really great positions, because leaders, and I look at this now as a leader of, there are 300 people that report to the businesses that I'm responsible for. And when someone grabs me in a corridor or asks me for some time and says, hey, like, can I share my opinion with you? Or I've got an idea, or that thing you said, I don't quite understand it, or I don't buy into it. Can I tell you about that? Honestly, I get like butterfly feelings. I honestly get like goose pimples and butterfly feelings, because as a leader, particularly with a big title, and I hate titles, but with a big title, people can be really worried about sharing the truth or their opinion with you. I just encourage people to not do that. Us leaders are starved sometimes of real truth, right? And we need it. We absolutely need it. We're not immune to making mistakes. So I need to hear those things. And I think I've always been someone that leaders have enjoyed working with, because I'm honest and I have ideas and I'm really committed. So if I say, hey, Obi, if you're my leader, there's a thing that we're doing, I don't agree with it, I don't think it's the most advantageous way to work, here's what I think. Often what a leader will do is go, do you think you can do that? I'm like, I'll give it a go. And that puts you in a position where you get to fail and succeed, demonstrate what you're capable of. And those people typically get more opportunities to perform. So my opinions, my inability to retain them, my inability to sugarcoat has put me in positions with leaders where they have given me more and more and more. That's a huge advantage. And that has led me to this position today. I've had a inability not to put myself in a position to ask for the opportunity to fix the thing I can't stand seeing.
What I would say there, and it's burning in my mind, so I'm in line with the way in which you operate, I'm going to say it. Given the modern world we live in and people being easily offended, I can also imagine a flip side to that of you inadvertently offending people with your open and honest feedback, which isn't in an offensive way. It's just people aren't used to or want to hearing the truth. Have you had experiences like that too?
As recently as last week.
Oh, really?
So all the time. Yeah, absolutely. I'm the worst person to ask for an opinion if you don't want the truth.
Right.
So the way I view ADHD, and by the way, please don't see this as an excuse. It's just the way it is. It's the way my brain works. Think about like an aisle in Tesco's. Someone without ADHD can go down that aisle and very confidently and accurately pick all of the right products that they need to deliver the thing that they're delivering, the meal, right? So whether that is bringing it back into to kind of ADHD land, whether that is tone, words, correct temperament, whether that's expression and like all of those things, someone without ADHD has a better chance of accurately selecting the right tooling to deliver the intended message. ADHD, back to Tesco's, is from like Sonic the Hedgehog, from the top of the aisle to the bottom of the aisle. You forget to pick up the things you need, and what comes out is exactly what comes out, right? You just don't take the time to process the way you want it to arrive. So when I'm asked a question, I'm fast. I'm so fast, which has helped me in my sales career because it kind of smells like confidence and it smells like credibility. But it is just that inability to slow myself down to collect the tools that I need to do the, I don't know, call it the right thing or the obvious thing, I suppose. So when you ask me a question, you just get the truth and you get it hard and you get it exactly the way I'm thinking it. It comes out my mouth in those precise words. Not everyone likes that. And I found myself in positions where I've instantly wished I could pull all those words back in, redigest them, and then try again. But by that point, as we all know, it's too late. So I've always said the absolute truth, but you could definitely accuse me of saying it in a way that's just not kind or too extreme or too honest. So yeah, that happens to me. So it happens to me at home as well, right? Like, so that's probably the part of ADHD that I'm trying hardest to leverage in a way that's better for the people that I surround myself with.
And so if I were to ask your wife, how does Luke's ADHD positively impact the home life and the flip side of that negatively impact, what would she say?
It's always fun. We are always looking for new experiences. What is it that we can do today? What have we not done before? I can't read the same book twice, watch the same film twice, go to the same holiday location twice.
Right.
Everything is novel. So we're always trying to do something new. I don't like going to the same restaurants repeatedly.
Sure.
I'm not a creature of habit.
Yeah.
So I am that constant in our household that's like, okay, what are we doing today?
Yeah.
Where should we go? Where have we not been before? Where have we not been for a lifetime?
Yeah.
What new experiences? We went on a holiday in April for a month. Never done that before. We were like, where are the less obvious places to go? All right, well, let's go to India.
Oh, perfect.
Let's put ourselves in positions where it is an attack of all of our senses. Let's try and teach the kids that there are other parts of this world that don't look like your part of the world. So always trying to put ourselves in a position where we learn, where it's a bit spicy, like, something that's so different to what we're used to. So I'd say she would definitely say she likes the fact that we're always looking for novelty. We're always looking for fun, interesting things to do.
The flip side of that coin?
The flip side is on a bad day, it's very visible that it's a bad day. That inability to bite my tongue. If I've had a really stressful day and I'm not proud of this, the people that you love the most tend to get the worst of you. That lack of patience and tolerance. My wife's life, we are the perfect partnership, the perfect team. We have very different responsibilities and we make very different we have very different kind of consequences and sacrifices. So the things that have happened in her day sometimes, whilst are the most important thing in her day, for me, they're really hard to process, even though I know I should, because I've had a materially worse day. And the reality is, whilst I'm saying that, I know that's complete and utter rubbish, because the right thing to do and it is to absolutely respect the worst thing that's gone on in her day. And I can sometimes just cut straight to I don't have time for this, or I right now can't be interested in this. I'm sorry, I just can't be interested in this. I hate that. I absolutely hate that. That's the worst thing. I suppose that's the bit of ADHD that I'm trying most to learn to better.
Sure. I mean, what I'm hearing, Luke, is that you're a human, a dad, a father, a man in a loving relationship who sometimes work can get the better of you and you struggle to separate the two. Believe you and me, I have been there more often than I care to say. And I think the way in which I manage things is different. So I just shut down, which means you can be speaking, but I just don't hear.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go back, but I'm just not hearing it because I'm just running over the million things that I need to sort out. Oh, that thing that just didn't go well and I need to get to it. And sadly, I've also been like that with my children too, where, they can be telling me about the best thing that's happened at school today. And all I'm thinking about is numbers and how I'm going to solve the problem work. And I don't believe I've got ADHD. I think that I'm a human who has flaws, who tries to work on those flaws. And like yourself, as you're saying now, I'm aware of it. That does not mean that next week it's not going to happen again. I don't want it to happen, but sometimes when I'm in that position, it's something that it's just something I have to work on.
Absolutely. I mean, I can go into phases. Luckily, they don't happen so often anymore. I've been experimenting with all sorts of different things from CBT and some of the stimulant medications. And I'm doing it because I find it really interesting. I love experimenting. So I love trying something, seeing what the results are, adapting, adjusting, saying, hey, that was cool, but I'm not going to do that anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely learning really fast, and I've had some awesome help from people that have been through it. So yeah, I feel very fortunate, and I've gone and got that help simply because I've asked people with no fear of rejection. So there are people that are semi-famous out there that have been all over the social media world talking about ADHD and their experience. I've reached out to those famous people and I've had responses from some of them. I've had conversations with some of them. I don't know. I go and look for the help, and if you say no or you don't respond, I don't get myself upset. I just ask someone else. So I've had some of the best help you could probably ever expect, and I have paid for some of that, and I haven't paid for other help. But yeah, I think one of the worst things, other than what I've already and you and I've already discussed, is I could definitely get myself into a position for 24, 48 hours where I just don't want to talk. And I actually find it really hard to talk. And the best thing you can do is leave me alone. I can logically say to you, I'm in a bit of a place right now where it isn't fun for me and it isn't fun for you. I'm sorry, it isn't you. It is not your fault. It is me. But like the best thing you can do is just leave me alone. And then I can kind of go completely quiet. And for some strange reason, I'll immediately snap out of it when I don't know, just something happens or something good or something that makes me laugh, and I'll be out of it. It's really odd. And that hasn't happened for a long time because of the work that I've been doing to better understand the triggers that cause that. So I can't really, I can't speak highly enough of some of the help I've had, and paid for and not paid for. Books like Scattered Minds. If you just want to understand how brains work, whether you think you've got ADHD or you know someone that has, or even if you're not interested in this subject at all, Scattered Minds is an incredible book for just better understanding how those big old things in our heads work.
Luke, I really appreciate you just being so open, upfront, and honest about ADHD and how it's impacted you. It's clearly been a superpower that's enabled you to get to where you are at the moment, but there are downsides, as you've pointed out there, and there are downsides that you've tried to manage over time. No, it's very honourable of you to share with so many people that don't know, and you definitely shedding a light on it there.
Over, this is the first time I have publicly. Yeah, I've known for a couple of years. One of the promises I made was I've had so much help myself from people that didn't have to give me their time that I should give that back. Be really honest with you that I felt nervous about doing that because there was for the last, I think it's dissipated somewhat over the last 6 months, but for the year prior, maybe 18 months prior, there was this explosion of everyone's got ADHD and it's really easy to get a diagnosis, and everyone that goes for a diagnosis pretty much gets one. And I just felt that wasn't the right time to, it's almost like, it felt like jumping on the bandwagon.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the right time for me to do it. So not that I think this is some sort of special big reveal, but yeah, this is the first conversation that's going to go public where I've spoken about this. But I mean, in the businesses, I've been really open with people, and several people have put themselves in really much better positions now because they were inspired to go and get the help themselves. And yeah, if I can help others, then that makes me happy.
Which is brilliant. That's what I'm all about. That's why I do what I do. That's why we're having the conversation that we're having. Luke, I want to move on to your leadership philosophy. Your tagline is, I build businesses that grow performance and stay human. What does staying human mean in practice?
Yeah, I'm obsessive about numbers, right? Businesses exist for growth and for profit, but none of that comes before people. So we drive really hard in these businesses. We are obsessive, we are relentless, but when someone needs help, everything else just disappears, right? Like you just do right by people. And if you were expecting some sort of crazy, sophisticated answer to this, I'm going to disappoint you. The reality is that I'm obsessive over business. but not when people need help, not when people need support, not when people need growth and development and are struggling. I've dealt with all sorts of situations, some super severe, from sudden deaths, one of which a couple of years ago was all over the news, and nothing matters in those moments, right? We've had situations where family members have suddenly fallen ill, people in the business, their family members, very close family members, and their focus is not on work. I'm not going to try and make it on work. I'm going to try and make sure it's on your wife, your child, your mum, whatever is going on in your life. Because I really hope that when and if that happens to me, I get the support too. So, Obi, I just think you should treat people the way you want to be treated. So I don't have a more sophisticated answer than that. We just do right by people.
Yeah, no, I think that's sophisticated enough. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think too, so often companies, it is a tagline, we are people first, we are people centric. And I'm like, what does that even mean? I know what it means to myself. I know that I have created cultures within companies where people understand that, yes, we've got a job here to do. We need to hit budgets, targets, and we're a business. We need to generate profit, but nothing trumps family. And I like to think that when people understand the company culture and that they are valued, that psychological contract kicks in. And if they need the support, you give them the support. That's what is required there and then.
I don't look for anything in return. The reality is that you do typically get quite a lot in return.
Yeah.
And I think something that's really important to say here is everything I've just said, I believe, and I have demonstrated a million times, exaggerated, but a lot.
Sure.
I've demonstrated that time and time again. What it doesn't mean is if someone isn't right for the business, it doesn't mean I'm not going to ask them to leave. And I think that is part of the same story. And not a lot of people understand this. I worry that people aren't happy, right? And I don't want people not to be happy in their workplace. It's like the worst thing ever. If someone comes into the business not wanting to be there, they couldn't sleep on the Sunday night because they just didn't want to go to work on the Monday. It was really hard for them. They'd reached their ceiling, or it wasn't fun anymore. They'd run out of passion. I will really make an effort to help them leave the organization. And what might show up is ruthlessness. I don't mind if that's how it's perceived. Honestly, I think it's kindness, putting people out of their misery sometimes. I've had some really hard conversations with people that haven't appreciated my approach, where I'm like, I think you should move on. Right, this is clearly like, tell me if I'm missing something, but I don't think you're having fun. I don't think you're learning. I don't think this is for you anymore. And sometimes, not as often as I would hope, but sometimes you get a message a few months later saying, thank you. I'm so happy you did that. Or actually in the moment, sometimes people say, thanks, I needed that push. Like I've been thinking on feeling this way for so long. I just haven't had the confidence to pull the plug. So thanks for giving me the kick. I just want people to be like, I want people to enjoy what they do. And I think we all live happier when we enjoy what we do.
Luke, it sounds like you've clearly got the correct understanding, but you've got the right balance there. As leaders, we're responsible for leading large groups of individuals to get to a common goal of success, whatever that common goal of success may look like. And whilst people can mistake that people-centric, people-first element as, oh, and therefore you're not going to get rid of anybody, and I can pull sick days left, right, and centre, and nothing will happen. I can underperform. No, that isn't the case. I always say as a leader, I will avoid being rude, and I'll always try to be kind. But sometimes being kind is saying goodbye.
100%.
Because the fit just isn't right, or you are not performing. I'll tell you you're not performing. These are the reasons why. Unfortunately, we need to part ways. But I think then that only reinforces and supports the company culture of excellence that you're trying to produce. But for everybody to know that, look, work hard to this common goal, and I will be more than supportive as I can to you, so long as you're fair with us. If you're being unfair with us, then we've got a problem, and I've got no issue telling you we have a problem.
Yeah, my job is to protect the business, to protect our customers, protect our team. That's not an order. Those things are all equally important. And one of the best ways you can not do that is by tolerating underperformance, bad behavior in your business.
Yeah.
And I don't tolerate that. Like I move really fast on ejecting people that are just not right. We're not right for them, or they're not right for us, or a combo of the two. So whilst I absolutely always focus on being human, right? Like people to people. I always focus on that. It doesn't stop me from very quickly analyzing a situation and ejecting someone if that's the right move. And I think those two things can work beautifully together, and you shouldn't really have one without the other.
Luke, just moving on to how you manage the complexity of your work then as a CEO. You're CEO of a large company. How do you maintain focus and avoid overwhelm across diverse sectors?
I think to answer that, I'd probably start with saying how not to do it.
Okay.
I think overwhelm typically kicks in when you're overstretched. You are doing too much, or you are having to be distracted constantly with different tasks, too many different tasks, or you're having to roll your sleeves up in some departments, and then you're having to set the strategy for others, and then you're having to make sure that the business thinks 3, 4, 5 years out. And that whole environment of variety and complexity is where overwhelm often kicks in. That normally happens because you don't have the right people. So I would say that my biggest and best tactic for avoiding as much overwhelm as possible is having damn good people in the organization. And I have damn good people in our organizations. I would put my team up against most teams globally. And we are winners. We go to a lot of conferences, parent company organized. There's always competitions. We win most of them. We have a team of winners who are humble enough to know they're not the finished article, who love to learn, love to challenge, love to be heard. And I'm so grateful for the people I get to work with. And I avoid overwhelm by making sure I've got the right people. A team, like I'm sure we don't need to talk about the definition of a team, but on a football team, a striker isn't necessarily trying to defend, right? And a defender isn't trying to strike. They trust each other. They know their position on the pitch. And I suppose bringing that football analogy into business, I've got a really good team, and they know what good looks like.
So you say they know what good looks like then, but so what's your approach to ensuring that your business it maintains its unique culture? Because you've clearly developed a unique culture to remain at the top, to continuously win awards. I mean, you speak very proudly there, and it really is touching to hear you talk of your team. What is it you're doing to ensure that team remain at the top?
I can tell you what I think I'm doing. I'm fairly confident about this, but the best people to ask would actually be the team.
I'm sure they'll put it in the comments.
I hope they do, but only if it's good. Do you know what? I think it's pretty simple. Again, you're not going to get much genius thinking on this stuff. I tend to simplify the way I think and operate. You just let people be themselves, and you make yourself so approachable that you're not immune to feedback. You're not immune to getting it wrong. And my team hold me to account as much as I hold them to account. If they've got opinions, they find ways to share them. They all do it differently. Some will Teams me, some will email me, some will book a really formal meeting, and some will just call me up and scream at me. I don't mind. And there's a great book, Situational Leader by Hershey and Blanchard. Really short book, an old book. And it talks about to treat everyone the same, you have to treat them differently. I suppose that's the summary of the book. And I think I show up in a way that works for the people that I work with. I don't show up with one hat on. I show up with as many hats as I need to get the best out of people. And I never assume that I have all the answers and I'm immune to mistakes. And that means I'm really approachable. I think I'm really approachable. I'm pretty damn sure I'm really approachable. And the business has flourished partially because of that. And it's allowed people to make mistakes. It's allowed people to tell me I've made a mistake. And it's just quite an honest environment. Yeah.
It's funny because you are textbook correct, but spoken with the passion of somebody who lives this in action. And that is a pleasure to listen to. I know that you've emphasized tighter execution when it comes to decision making. How do you ensure your teams execute at a level that you expect without micromanaging? Because micromanagement is a hot topic. It's something that a lot of leaders, well, I've seen a lot of leaders get wrong. I've seen individuals be micromanaged or feel like they are being micromanaged. I think part of it comes down to communication and the way things are communicated.
Yeah.
I wonder what your take is on ensuring that execution of what you're trying to achieve without crossing the line of micromanagement and expecting to know everything and see everything that everybody is doing constantly.
So I think there's a number of things I want to talk about here. in no particular order, having good people on your team is one hell of a way not to need to micromanage. Not believing that you have all the answers and you are the best at everything, because trust me, I am not, is also a great way to trust people to get on and do the thing that they need to get on and do. But there's one thing, I think I learned this the hard way, but there's something I believe wholeheartedly, and let me try and articulate it for you, but feel free to grill it and dig into it if
Sure.
it's not clear enough. I'm really creative. I think I have really good ideas. Let's just say, Obi, let's use this as an example. Let's say, you work in the team. I've got an idea, and let's just believe for a moment that it is the best idea on the planet. But Obi, I'm not the one that's going to execute on it. You are. But you only believe my idea to the tune of 50, 60%, right? Like you're behind it. You think it's a reasonable idea, but it's not your idea. And often we believe that our ideas are the best ones. So you're going to deliver my awesome idea. You're going to execute on that to 60%. Okay, block that in for a second. Let's compare it to how it could work. Let's say, Obi, your idea is 80% as good as mine, right? It's a damn good idea. It's 80% as good as mine, but you believe in it so much, right? It's your idea. You couldn't be more passionate about it, and you deliver and you execute on your idea to 100%. Which is the most effective idea?
Yeah,
yours, right?
I agree.
So I always try where possible, and it often is possible, to bring out the best idea that that person has, that they are most passionate about, with the belief that even if I have a better idea, unless I'm going to execute on it, you're going to execute on your idea better than mine. So just trying to bring out the passion in people, trying to bring out the thing that they want to deliver, has often led me to a position where I don't need to micromanage, because that person is operating on, like, their petrol, their fuel is their own passion and commitment and desire to deliver the thing that they dreamt up. And that often means micromanagement doesn't come into the scene at all. Does that make sense?
Completely and utterly. I think, and again, to paraphrase, I think what I'm hearing is having belief in the individuals you've hired to do that thing. So, if you hired an ops director to make sure everything is running operationally well, you trust them to make sure it runs operationally well. I think what I'm also hearing is, layman's terms, there is multiple ways to skin a cat, which I've always believed in. And whilst your idea is the best idea to you to get the job done, there are other ways which get the job done equally as well. It's just a completely different way to your way.
Yeah. And I think, just for clarity, I don't always have the best idea.
Yeah.
But pretending in a situation where I do, it's just
Sure.
really important that the one that you're responsible for executing is something you absolutely buy into and believe.
Yeah.
And I think we always get the best result when we're delivering something we love.
Yeah. No, couldn't agree more there, Luke. Luke, for aspiring leaders listening, who might feel they don't have the right background or struggle with neurodiversity, what's your message about their potential?
Yeah. I think, first of all, don't let anybody tell you the struggle isn't real, because to different degrees, it is. It's really real, right? Like, I haven't personally had too many moments in my life where I've wished away my neurodiversity. I said to you at the beginning of this call, if you gave me a pill to get rid of it, I'd flush it down the toilet. But it is a real struggle. And I think we live in such a world now where I don't have Instagram, I don't have Facebook on my phone, I don't use X, I don't have any of that stuff, because I think it's so bad for us, right? Like, we're seeing perfection all the time. People in, what good looks like is nowadays private planes and, I don't know, helicopters and Lamborghinis and, I don't know.
The reality is it's not reality.
No, being in the gym at 4 a.m. and that's the only way you can succeed. All of that stuff is stupid.
Yeah.
It sucks, right? And I think stay away from that stuff. I've obsessed about the way my brain works, but not because I want to change it, not because I'm unhappy with who I am and where I'm at, but because I want to leverage who I am. I want to get the absolute best of me. So I haven't really focused overly on my weaknesses. I've focused on making my strengths stronger. And I think that's really important, because, and I think we do this in education, we try and make kids good at the stuff they're not good at. But some of us are just not born to be good at everything, right? But we are good at stuff, and we should focus on making those things better, because that's the path of least resistance. That's the thing that we can absolutely double down on. So I think if you're wondering what you can achieve. Maybe you do, maybe you don't have neurodiversity. I think this applies I think just try and understand your brain work, how your brain works, and try and get the most from it. Don't try and change yourself. Don't try and be someone you're not. Be you and find an environment where it's okay to be you, whatever you means. I've done so much work on myself, from psychometric assessments to spending time with people unpaid and spending time with people paid, coaches, mentors, therapists. And it's all been with just trying to understand, what am I good at and how can I use that to my advantage? We don't have to reinvent ourselves to be awesome.
Yeah, I love your answer there. I think equally you're fine. Like, you're not broken, because I think I've seen too many people feel that they're broken. The world's telling me I'm broken. School told me I was broken. My parents told me I was broken. Everything is telling me that I am broken, which means I'm bad, I'm wrong. And that isn't the case. I think looking at you, Luke, it's clear that your ADHD is a superpower. But let's just take the ADHD away for a moment. I think you as an individual and the journey you have been on and the way you've articulated yourself today is extremely inspirational. It's very open, very honest. And I think there will be many people that will listen to this and learn from a CEO who is currently out there still trying to get things right, still failing from time to time. And I guess my final question to you, Luke, is, if looking ahead, how do you see your unique leadership approach evolving as you continue scaling these businesses globally?
Yeah, it has to be around talent, learning, and development. That's always been important. But in particularly, well, I'd say actually just globally now, but maybe particularly technology businesses, AI is such an incredible opportunity. I feel lucky to be alive right now with what we have at our disposal, but it does change the landscape. People have got really good at being good. And this new tool means you're going to have to change the way you're good. And some will survive that journey, some won't. My whole approach of what's next is very much about, how do we adapt ourselves to be learning and changing and living with uncertainty more than we've ever had to before. So I think if that's a good enough answer, that's the answer, right? It is about talent, it's about learning, it's about development, it's about thought process, it's about mentality, psychometrics, it's about understanding people's characteristics and their traits to try and predict the team structures of what, for what we're going to be moving forward. It's now less about domain experience, domain knowledge, IQ. Things like EQ have never been more important. Things like adaptability, drive, decision making at speed and in stressful situations. Those things, they are where value is at. So yeah, I think it's going to level the playing field for a lot of people. I think if you watch the news, it will tell you that it's a scary time to be alive. I actually think it's an awesome time to be alive. I wouldn't listen to the news.
Yeah, no, I agree with regards to it being an awesome time to be alive. I love the advancements in technology. I think they're absolutely fantastic. I think we just need to make sure that we keep up with the learning and how we remain relevant. And there's also a responsibility to protect children too, and protect them to an extent. They need the exposure, because this is their world, their reality, what they're growing up in. It's definitely an awesome time to be alive. And I think the one thing people don't know about you, which I do want to share, or at least ask the question, because it's on your LinkedIn profile, where you say you're a CEO, husband, and everything else, but it finishes with, and the owner of 3 alpacas.
Obi, I told you we like novelty.
How does one end up owning 3 alpacas? What's that about?
We are fortunate to have a lovely garden, some land. Yeah, you either get to mow the lawn, which is time consuming, or get some animals to do it. And we chose 3 alpacas. We had 4. Unfortunately, one of them passed away recently. And we have 3 alpaca boys, young males, who are hilarious, absolutely fascinating to watch. Yeah, they are just a lot of fun. And we decided, why not?
Brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's one thing, if I could be remembered, if this podcast be remembered for one thing, it's this piece of advice. It's, don't wait to be asked. Everything I've ever done in my life and my career has normally been me knocking on someone's door, not waiting for them to knock on mine. And I think we have taught in society that you should wait to be asked. We teach our children, I don't, but many people teach their children, not to speak unless spoken to, and respect your elders and all of this crap, right? And the reality is, we've created the environment and the culture and the society that we have today. And my children are not growing up that way. They are not going to wait for someone to knock on their door. They're going to knock on other people's doors. And that's the one thing I just wish more people did.
Yeah, I have a very similar motto, which is nobody's coming to save you.
It is exactly the same thing.
Yeah, nobody's coming to save you. And therefore you need to go and get it yourself. Whatever it is, you need to go and get it yourself. Luke, one final question before I let you go, and it's a question I like to ask all of my guests, is can you recommend either a book, a movie, or a podcast that our listeners can go to that will help them to further their careers, be more entrepreneurial, speak to the innovator within them?
Yeah. I think I've lent the book to someone. Otherwise, I'd grab it and like show you it. But The Situational Leader is the book I'd recommend. It's an old book. I've never read a Harry Potter. Anything like that scares me because it just looks so big. This is a small book. It will take maybe 2 or 3 hours to read if you're a quick reader. And if leading people is or isn't in your near future, it doesn't matter. Leadership isn't just about leading others, it's also about leading yourself. And that's an awesome book. It's an old one, but it's a good one. So The Situational Leader, I think it's by Hershey and Blanchard. Hopefully that's enough information and your listeners will find it. But The Situational Leader is an epic book.
I'm sure it is. And I for one, will certainly be going to grab that straight away. Luke, it's been an absolute pleasure having you come here and speak so openly and so candidly about your journey to becoming a CEO and how you go about leading multiple businesses across multiple destinations, places. You've been very open with your whole life and you haven't just left us with a business view, and I'm really appreciative of that. Thanks for your time. Hackers, we will see you again soon. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thanks for having me, Obi. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.